This year's Silverstone Grand Prix was another fantastic watch. How many of you thought you would be cheering on Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris as they chased podium finishes on Sunday? Seeing yet another team come into the fight for the podium places behind Max Verstappen was amazing. But while McLaren had an incredible weekend, their perennial midfield rivals Alpine had the worst of the season so far. Pierre Gasly in particular was furious about how his race played out, voicing his anger at his fellow drivers during the post-race interviews. Who threatened Gasly to a fight? Who did he push in the interview pen? And is he right to be so furious? Stick around to find out. Going into the British Grand Prix, Alpine had high hopes of a bit of a turnaround. The dizzying highs of Esteban Ocon's podium finish in Monaco has been followed by just 10 points from 4 races. Until the Austrian Grand Prix, they had clear supremacy over their midfield rivals McLaren. The two teams had been battling each other for years now, and having got the better of McLaren in 2022, Alpine have been keen to push on. That has not happened though, and McLaren's upgrade package that was fitted to Lando Norris's car in Austria and then to Oscar Piastri's car in Britain have catapulted McLaren into another league. Lando also had a new front wing at Silverstone that wasn't ready for Piastri's car yet. McLaren have been dead in the water so far this year, but as the British teams battle to call Silverstone their home race, it was very clearly McLaren who had the crowd behind them. The roar as Norris got provisional pole in the dying seconds during qualifying was as loud as any I've heard for the former home favourite Lewis Hamilton. Only a poorly timed safety car, which demoted Oscar Piastri to 4th on track, could stop them securing a double podium, and if the race had been a few laps longer, Oscar would have got Hamilton anyway, whose soft tyres were completely dead in the last couple of laps. But that story could just as easily have been about Alpine. Despite the French name, they are also a British racing team. They might not have a British driver, and the crowd would have been apathetic to Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, securing 2nd and 3rd in qualifying, but they did have upgrades for the race. Technical Director Matt Harmon described the Silverstone upgrades for Alpine as quite a significant one, and said that the team was excited about the promising results of simulation work on the upgrade. As has been the case all season though, things didn't go as Alpine expected. They've already conceded that they won't achieve their pre-season goals of pushing the top 3, and the impotence of their upgrades just reinforces this. 10th and 13th on the grid after Saturday, 18th and 20th after Sunday. This was as bad as it gets, and Gasly was furious for what had happened on track. But his anger wasn't directed at his team. It was Lance Stroll and Carlos Sainz that had really pissed him off. A furious Pierre Gasly confessed to being extremely confused by the FIA steward's decision not to punish Lance Stroll for an overtake. Towards the end of the first lap, after the safety car restart in the second half of the race, Stroll launched an attack on Gasly on the outside of the fast Stowe right-hander. Gasly left Stroll very little room, and Stroll completed the pass for 11th place on the exit of the corner, with all 4 wheels clearly beyond the white line. The Aston Martin driver had his lap time deleted and received a black and white warning flag, indicating his track limits offence had been noted, but he was allowed to keep the position to Gasly's immediate anger. Over the team radio, the Frenchman demanded that Stroll be told to give the position back, but that message never made it to the Aston Martin driver. If you go off the racetrack, you've got to give the position back. Just as simple as that, Gasly told the media after the race. If you try and you see you've been off the racetrack, just give the position back. That's how I've been taught racing by the FIA. I've paid the price in different situations. It's just not fair, not having that consistency. Now, next race, I'm supposing that going off the line of the racetrack while overtaking someone is allowed, and then all of a sudden I'm going to end up with a 5-second penalty. So I just can't understand. Gasly pointed to an incident in the Formula 2 feature race earlier in the day, when Alpine junior driver Victor Martins was handed a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage for going outside of the white lines of Village before passing Ayumu Uwasa for the lead into the loop. Gasly insisted that such rules were black and white. It just doesn't seem fair, he continued. Black and white track limits. It's black and white if you're on the track or off the track. Off the track, gaining an advantage, 5-second penalty or give the position back. It's always happening, and it happened with Victor this morning, so I just don't understand it at all. I got done 15 seconds last weekend for track limits. Now I lose a position to someone getting off the track and nothing happens. So I'm just extremely confused with what's going on at the moment. It's easy to understand Gasly's frustration. The FIA have been infuriatingly inconsistent at times this season, and somehow it always seems like Alpine are on the receiving end of it. But it was Pierre's next battle with Stroll that caused the two to threaten each other. A few laps later, Stroll drove off the circuit through the final complex as they fought wheel to wheel, rejoined awkwardly, and drove into Gasly's car, breaking its right rear suspension. Not that Gasly will have cared, but at least Stroll got a 5-second time penalty for that move. 5 seconds for taking another driver out of the race after an illegal move seems way too lenient to me. The clash ended a frustrating day for Gasly, who had started 10th and ran behind Fernando Alonso in the first stint, while targeting a points finish in the race. "We were chasing Fernando, there was a good speed," Gasly said. "I just lacked some straight line speed to try something and get a move on him. But it was still good to be in that pack, and then all our efforts got ruined with what followed. So disappointing." Despite Stroll ruining Gasly's race, the Canadian seemed to show absolutely no remorse, telling Sky Sports that Gasly had been the one that had forced him off both times, and denying he'd done anything wrong. When asked if he'd spoken to Gasly yet about the incident, Stroll said, "No, I'll meet him in the parking lot later." I'm going to assume that Stroll was joking and doesn't actually want to have a fist fight with Pierre Gasly in the parking lot at Silverstone, but it comes across as incredibly arrogant. It takes some exceptional circumstances for a Formula 1 driver to admit they made a mistake in a battle that could have caused them to be penalised. Nonetheless, joking that you're going to have a fight with the driver in question after ending their race with an illegal move is in pretty poor taste. Gasly's post-race anger didn't end with just Lance Stroll though. Carlos Sainz was on the end of it as well. Before the battle with Stroll, Pierre had also had an on-track tussle with the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Gasly felt that Sainz had run him off the road as they went to battle heading into Copse, Sainz taking back the position there after Gasly had overtaken at Luffield. And when Sainz was speaking to the Spanish media, Gasly came over to share his frustration. As he walked past, he pushed the Spaniard on the shoulder, angrily saying, "Don't push me like that." Sainz's response was in Spanish, saying "pobrecito," or "poor baby" in English. Gasly has always been a fiery character on track, but at Silverstone you could understand his frustration. But perhaps that frustration should instead have been directed at his own team. Alpine needs to start to turn things around, because at the moment they are severely disappointing. Actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney recently widened their sporting footprint after joining an investor group that purchased a 24% stake in the French team. Fellow actor Michael B. Jordan is involved in the venture as well. Otro Capital, Redbird Capital Partners, and Maximum Effort Investments partnered to pay $218 million for the ownership stake in the team. That is some serious investment, which will undoubtedly go towards a new wind tunnel, so the team don't have to take their parts to France every time they want to do aero testing. It will take a few years for that investment to see a return, but as more money goes into the team, the consequences for failure become more severe. Something team boss Otmar Safnauer will know very well from his time at Aston Martin. Alpine has now been passed by both Aston Martin and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, and that has to be viewed as a failure. They either have a lack of understanding of the new technical regulations that is holding them back, or there's a lack of accountability within the team for the ineffectiveness of its developmental departments. Gasly's frustration may have been triggered by Stroll and Sainz, but those feelings have been building all season. His move to Alpine was meant to be a step forward into the big leagues, but this year, it would have made almost no difference if he was still at AlphaTauri. Was Gasly right to be angry at Stroll for how he behaved during their on-track battle? And are Alpine capable of turning their season around? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.